put off by how long this video is, don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. Election movie review. And there we go. There we go. Plot. And I just briefly would like to note, for anyone bothered by swearing, I typically don't swear in these videos. In this one I will be. In part, in quoting lines. Plot. This is the IMDb summary. A high school teacher's personal life becomes complicated as he works with students during the school elections, particularly with an obsessive overachiever determined to become student body president. And on plot. While nowhere near as dark as The Rules of Attraction, this does have a similar quality. If your sense of humor is dark enough, you can laugh at almost everything in the film. Now, I have not watched any other Alexander Payne movie, though I would like to, and I have not read the novel. Length. This is an hour and 39 minutes, 38 and a half, because I am obsessive about details like that, and an hour and 36 without credits. Moving on to IMDb stuff. In the text of a newspaper article in the film, if you've paused the film in order to read this entire article, your time would be better spent renting Citizen Ruth from your local video store. Do you know how hard it is to write these fake news stories for newspaper movie props? I've got better things to do. And yeah, I forgot if I noticed. I'm going to try to say which category of IMDb thing it is. For the first ones are trivia. Apples are featured prominently in the movie, usually before trouble arrives for a character. And yeah, and then there are some examples. I really should have moved this to the spoiler section. I might, at times in this video, stand kind of awkwardly. I have some back pain, but it doesn't really matter if I'm standing up, sitting down, recording or not recording, so I figured I was going to record, you know. But yeah, I might stand awkwardly as I try to figure out the best way to stand with this back. In the gym scene, since the extras were real high school students, the director faced the problem of not having enough of them because of the SAT season, many of them having already found out the sometimes tedious process of working as an extra. As a solution for the shots requiring a full gym to be seen, the director asked the extras to move 2 or 3 times from their seats to look as if there were more people with the help of editing. The wide shot showing both sides of the gym was done in less than 20 minutes. The teachers of the Papillion La Vista High School asked more students to join the film shooting. And this is Chris Klein's debut film and his first professional acting job. And he was actually a student at Millard West High School in Omaha when he was discovered by Alexander Payne while looking for a school to use for filming. Another one was eventually used. Although a number of other actors auditioned for Paul, Klein stuck in Payne's mind, and this is my favorite performance of his, though I do like him in what else I've seen him in, which is pretty much just the first two American Pie movies. And as usual, you know, to answer the question of why I didn't watch the American Pie movies beyond the second one, watch the second one. Better watch. Actually, don't watch the second one. Just only watch the first one. It's one of those things where there's probably only really going to be one good movie in, you know, with that basic premise. You know, even the second one, they feel they have to push the characters, you know, so much further. So, you know, Stifler is much more of a jerk, and so, for some reason he's hanging out with the other characters, basically because he was popular. People liked seeing him in the first film. In the first film, he specifically wouldn't hang out with them, so yeah. And the Spanish teacher was actually a Spanish and French teacher where and when Alexander Payne attended high school. And since the movie was shot in a real high school, Papillion La Vista High School, Omaha, Nebraska, adjacent classrooms had real classes going on while some scenes for the movie were being done. And in the soundtrack, some background noises come from real teachers and students, and the director decided to leave that in as to give the movie a more realistic sound. And it is also, when you have to like dub in stuff later, it tends to be more awkward than if you do use the original. Yeah. Thora Birch, who was originally cast as Tammy Metzler, left the film in Omaha on the third day because of creative differences with the director, and I don't know what those are. I like Thora Birch in what I've seen her in, which is very, very little, but I could see her as Tammy. But I forget what her name is, but I really love the performance of the actress who plays Tammy in this. It's, yeah. And there's this bit where you see someone's porno collection, and there actually is one of them, a porno called The Big Election. So yeah. And really, I mean, if you were to do a porn spoof, actually there might be, I didn't look for it, you know, porn spoof of this movie, you know, just call it Erection, you know, that's very easy to yeah. And the casting director of the movie is the football player that appears in the adult movie that you see a little bit of, so yeah. And Reese Witherspoon's portrayal of Tracy Flick was voted as the 45th greatest movie performances of all time by Premiere Magazine. And I can really see why. She really, again, seen her in some like completely spaced out. I forgot to note what other movies I'd seen, so doing this by memory. But yeah, she's really, really good. You know, great in American Psycho, and just, yeah, just she's great. But this is probably the best performance I've seen of hers. And the custodian in the movie was an actual custodian at the time, since retired. And Melissa Joan Hart auditioned for the role of Tracy Flick. I could definitely see the passionate, crazy Flick stuff as done by her. I think specifically is that Jennifer Love Hewitt movie where she plays the yearbook movie girl, and it's not a very big role, but there is this bit which, I haven't watched these movies for years. I don't watch a lot of high school movies, but the yeah, there's this bit where like she's trying to get someone to sign a yearbook or something, and the person like knocks it out of her hand onto the ground or something, and she just shouts, "What is wrong with you people? These are treasured memories." For that, I could definitely see her, the really, yeah. And when for her to like the parts where Flick is like smiling and sometimes for real, sometimes it fake. I don't remember Melissa Joan Hart's performances well enough. I did watch some of the stuff she was in when I was younger. This was ranked number 9 on Entertainment Weekly's 50 Best High School Movies. And yeah, I forget if this is noted anywhere else. I'm not going to give away when and where, but there's this. I think the director's commentary identified it as a Native American, like, war cry or something like that, and it's used, several times in this movie, and it's just pitch perfect. It's when Tracy is especially like furious about something, and just and you see like Reese Witherspoon's eyes as this plays, and just yeah. And it's the kind of thing where like if you weren't watching the movie, if just like you were, yeah, like let's say that you were just passing by someone watching the movie, and you didn't look at the screen, and you just heard this war cry, you'd be like really shocked, but in the movie it works perfectly. It really is. That is exactly how her frustration, that's what that sounds like. Her eyes are screaming. So it just, yeah. And really, the movie, you could very easily just remove that, and like her eyes by themselves would still really give a compelling, but the fact that they did use it, and it is this sort of thing, like this is not a movie that uses a lot of stuff that really, a lot of audio that really stands out, and when it does, it really has an effect because of that. The just little scenes where the music is basically, this is what it sounds like to that person in that situation, and it works so well. And when MTV Pictures sent Alexander Payne the novel in 1997 to gauge his interest, he told them he didn't want to produce a teen comedy. After talking with them, they convinced him that the story in essence was a dark adult comedy disguised as a teen comedy, which, yeah. And then the trivia point goes on to say, buying that argument, he agreed to do the movie. Seems like they were completely honest. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if that was editorializing, or if the person writing it in just didn't think about it, and the implication there is, it's not so much him buying the argument, it's him agreeing with their point of view. But yeah, anyway. And the yearbook office is the real yearbook office for the high school, but the director's office is actually the detention room refurbished for the movie. And that is it for that. Now let's see. About reviews. Reception. And this is straight from Wikipedia. Election was a box office bomb as it grossed only $14.9 million against a budget of $25 million. The film, however, was met with critical acclaim. And honestly, people going into this expecting American Pie or Road Trip probably were, yeah, that wasn't, the movie turned out not to be what they had maybe expected. And it's, I would say that this is a far better movie than those, though I maintain that both of those movies are great examples of the subgenre, and then you can have an argument about whether, whether it's a good or a bad thing that subgenre has had a resurgence since, in the 80s, there were also these R-rated teen comedies, and then they kind of went away for a little while, and then in the late 90s, they came back where, other teen comedies in the 90s were very PG-13 and very, it's kind of the thing that parents feel comfortable with their teenagers watching. And then I forget if American Pie was the first one or what, but someone said, as I forget his real name, but Jim, I want to say it's the one who has sex with the pie in the first American Pie movie, said in an interview that he was glad to be able to be in an R-rated teen comedy because teen life is R-rated, and I would have to agree that it makes a lot of sense. I think, I understand better why children's movies often have. I get it. A lot of parents and other family members don't want their teenagers seeing something that's R-rated, but it does, and certainly some of the movies are just go really far in trying to be offensive and give kind of, it can kind of skew teenagers' reaction to teenage life. But I do think that it makes sense to give various groups of people something that speaks to them, as long as it doesn't do so in a way that is genuinely harmful. It doesn't bother me if a lot of really hateful, racist people feel like there aren't any movies that speak to them. If every movie they watch, is made from the perspective that you're not a bad person just because you're not ethnically white, But yeah, I do think that a lot of people probably went into this thinking it would be American Pie, and that's not what they got, and so they were frustrated and told their friends not to go and see it. That's, yeah, and the movie probably should have, I don't know that much about, I did watch the trailer, but I don't really know if, it's been too long since I watched the trailer for American Pie, so I don't know if people watch the two trailers and figured they would be similar movies. But I could imagine that, yeah, maybe the movie should have, maybe the marketing should have made it clearer that it wouldn't be that kind of movie. It is not at all that kind of movie, though it does have the kind of some R-rated stuff like in those movies, but it doesn't for example, it doesn't tend to go as far as American Pie 1 does. And I do think that a lot of the stuff in the first American Pie, it doesn't go too far. It strikes the right tone for this kind of, yeah, you know, there are these situations that teenagers can, like, recognize as, you know, yeah, this is the kind of thing that happened to me or happened to some of my friends, or I could imagine happening. Now, yeah, to get back to Wikipedia, on Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a rating of 92% based on 105 reviews with an average rating of 7.8 out of 10, and I would have to agree. My personal rating on IMDb, is an 8 out of 10. And the critical consensus reads, Election successfully combines dark humor and intelligent writing in this very witty and enjoyable film. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 83 out of 100 based on 33 reviews, indicating universal acclaim. Roger Ebert gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4, praising Witherspoon and Payne and saying, "Here's a movie that is not simply about an obnoxious student, but also about an imperfect teacher, a lockstep administration, and a student body that is mostly just marking time until it can go out into the world and occupy valuable space." And yeah, as he often did, he absolutely nailed it. And the movie is ranked 61 on Bravo's 100 Funniest Movies, 9 on Entertainment. Yeah, that's not. And that I was already said. And yeah, it really is. It's not the kind of humor of, say, American Pie. And the novel was a moderate success and received critical praise. San Francisco Chronicle called it a darkly eerie and winning new novel. The New York Times wrote that the novel provides gratifyingly exact and telling portraits of the kids themselves. Solid plotting guarantees that the reader really does want to learn who wins when the ballots are finally counted. And that is also something I would have to say. The movie, yeah, you really get into, you know, you can have an argument about how much, which the movie, there is indeed a character in the movie who argues that there's not, it doesn't matter that much to the individual students. It is not the same as president of, you know, she doesn't say this, but yeah, it's ultimately not, she points out it's something that the person who wins puts on their, you know, college application, I get, you know, and yeah, it's something that they can use in that way, but it's not something that's actually going to make the individual students' lives happier, better, and yeah. Now, Critics Pro. Critic Pro quotes. Alexander Payne's wicked satire of power and social politics set in the overheated incubator of a high school student body election is as sharp and perceptive now as it was in 1999. This review is from 2016. Payne and Taylor are equal opportunity satirists, and their sly wit dismantles everything from high school culture to suburban complacency. This clever, biting high school satire is arguably Alexander Payne's most original and accomplished film, and so far he has made only good pictures. And I do want to briefly note, I can only base it on having watched this movie, but, you know, Film Brain points out in his review of I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, I want to say it's called, that though Payne wrote that, they probably changed a lot, and he came in and wrote this much more intelligent satire, and yeah, I would be extremely surprised if it turned out that that movie was the way he had written it when he wrote the screenplay. It's just, yeah, and that's also, I mean, you watch this movie, nothing about this movie makes you think, oh, so just like Adam Sandler. It's, yeah. Dark high school comedy is best for older teens. Surprise, an intelligent, well-written high school story that offers some real ideas to chew on, rather than simply wallowing in nubile flesh. And, personally, I would say that The Rules of Attraction also very much. Actually, no, sorry, that's not a high school movie, that's college. But yeah, that movie also has a lot to say. The treatment of this touchy material is impressive, neither gratuitous nor mincing, and yeah, and then he goes on to say, but this 1999 satirical comedy doesn't really go anywhere, and I don't agree with that. An instant classic, Alexander Payne's 1999 high school comedy, yeah, a lot of these reviews were written after 1999, seems even more scathing now that we're losing control of our own election machinery, and he wrote that in 2010. Election at first has the feel of simple work, but don't let that fool you, it's a complex, deep tale. Took the sleaze of the teen comedy and spun it into something that's both hugely entertaining and extremely insightful. A funny and horrifying allegory of American politics and adult society as seen through the prism, or shall we say prison, that is secondary education. Maybe its only real fault is that it's a little too close to the truth to be as funny as it could be. I don't. Again, like I said, well, I didn't say it, but I brought up the idea that if you have a dark enough sense of humor, almost everything in this can be, and I do. And that is also a thing. I mean, this movie, yeah, American Pie, you can, I forget, is there much dark comedy in that? I don't offhand recall it as there being a lot of that. But yeah, if you don't have a dark sense of humor, this movie is really not for you. It's yeah. A wicked carnal comedy. You've got to laugh at Witherspoon's tightly wound Little Miss Perfect, rising at dawn to do her hair and encase herself in a preppy look before baking cupcakes to pass out at school as vote-getters in her campaign for student council president. The script, based on a Tom Perrotta novel, is tight and elegant, alarmingly insightful, surprisingly compelling piece of work. Kudos to Payne and Taylor for their courage, balance, and humor. A dark, insidiously funny satire on the self-involved ways otherwise rational people can allow narrow personal agendas to lead them astray to the point of self-destruction. This remarkable film may be set in high school, but its satiric take on moral corruption, political chicanery, adultery, and seduction is anything but juvenile. Production, set, costume, and photography all help give the film a crisp look, capturing the inherent Midwestern feel provided by the Omaha, Nebraska locale. Those who watch this film now are going to experience it as a more powerful social-political commentary than the audiences in 1999, and that's a review from 2005. And I agree, I think the movie has really only gotten better as the years go by, as we see more elections, and just, yeah, I mean, it's not a one-to-one, but the movie really does capture a lot of real life, for the real presidential election of America, and other countries. The the way people treat each other, the way they go about it, their motivations, and yeah. A sordid and savory dark comedy. Broderick is the flip side of his Ferris Bueller persona. Reese Witherspoon captures so perky you could strangle her to perfection. Fun and funny, but a bit rude at times. And personally, I enjoyed all the rude humor, but I do understand, like, people. Again, I think a lot of teens going in expecting an R-rated comedy probably enjoyed those parts, but it is something that a lot of people would find, you know, offensive in the bad way. Blends deft human observation, solidly realized characters, and a few slightly domesticated moments of shock humor to create a comedy as rich and winning as it is offbeat. Excuse me. This movie hits its keenest edge as a portrait of self-delusion. An extremely sharp, multi-layered, and inspired satire. Payne could emerge as a Mark Twain of the cinema, gleefully pricking America's complacent sense of morality. One of the best made comedies this year. A subversive, wickedly funny film. Election features a career-best performance from Witherspoon. The humor may be vicious, but there's also a strong vein of pathos running through the film, I have to agree. Full-fledged critique of the moral emptiness of the archetypal ugly American, those driven, self-righteous go-getters who hurt other people. Absolutely. It dragged me kicking and screaming back to high school. Election is a funny, smart movie. I don't think I can do movie justice without you, readers, taking that leap of faith and checking out yourself. A subtle and complex satire not only about high school, but about our national character and the current state of democracy. This is a very funny film, one of the best of the year. The screenplay by Payne and Jim Taylor delights. A quartet of solid performances only adds to the movie's strength. A tart study in teacher-student relations, adolescent pecking orders, and the nasty vicissitudes of living in a world of haves and have-nots. Reese Witherspoon hits her full stride in Election. With narration from all four of the principals and a script that keeps piling on the moral dilemmas, this never settles for easy moralities. One of the funniest, shrewdest, smartest movies in recent memory. Of all the teen films flooding the multiplexes these days, this is the one worth the wait in line. If there were an Academy Award for body language, Witherspoon would win it hands down for this performance. Definitely agreed. Election is director Alexander Payne's, Citizen Ruth, cynical satire of the American schools and the electoral process. This is democracy run amok. Wickedly funny. Witherspoon is hilariously uptight as Tracy, the overachiever. She is so cute and perky, you want to love her. Sort of. And there's this one who says, The film never finds a confident tone. I would have to disagree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was, yeah. I'm not sure what I would say about that other than just saying the exact opposite of what he wrote. So, yeah. A dark, wickedly entertaining romp that wears his cynicism on its sleeve and sees no reason to wash any of it off. It's a winner, wonderfully subversive. The students are all a treat. Tracy Flick is a character you'll never forget. Deliciously malevolent, fresh, fast, funny, and full of insight. A fine, near seamless film that finally suffers slightly from an inability to wrap up its tale. I was happy with the wrap-up. Reese Witherspoon in a performance that could become legendary. One of the funniest comedies in years and the best teen flick in nearly a decade. A much-needed breath of fresh cinematic air. Highly recommended. Appealingly eccentric, sorry. The filmmakers have a great deal of fun at the expense of the pointlessness of high school elections, which aren't just popularity contests, but overt wastes of time. I feel like that person probably didn't particularly enjoy having to sit through the political speeches in high school. Yeah. By the candidates for high school. Yeah. A black comedy that takes off in unexpected directions. One of election's many beauties is the graininess that gives the classrooms and corridors the homemade quality. A deliciously sardonic and underhanded satire of politics and high school culture. And this one review said, clever, somewhat predictable. Honestly, I found the twists to be highly unexpected, and a good amount of them, without it trying too hard. Stylish film features Reese Witherspoon's greatest performance to date. Terrific high school comedy with an unusual perspective and much to offer people who like to think while they laugh. Volatile and hilarious. The cleverest teen-themed movie I've seen in years. Witherspoon has the most expressive pair of nostrils in the business. Absolutely. Crisply written and ingeniously plotted. So blankly funny it hurts. Election is a darkly funny, often twisted, and thoroughly enjoyable film. The satire of the season, a hilarious, razor-sharp indictment of the American dream. Filled with all sorts of offbeat and witty humor. Election is a bracingly intelligent adult comedy that shrewdly captures adolescence. And that is really, I mean, several of the main characters in this are these high school student teenage characters, and they feel real. I mean, this is, I forget his exact age, but I mean, this is written and directed by people in their 20s and 30s. It's not, they may remember high school very vividly, but they didn't just leave high school, and they're certainly not still in high school. And yet, it really does capture the voice, all these. They feel completely real, and like you feel like might know someone just like that, or maybe you were one of these people. Hopefully not Tracy. And if you were Tammy, then hopefully you yeah, I shouldn't say that here, but hopefully you felt more happy later in life than she is in chunks of this. Reese Witherspoon is proving to be one of the most versatile actresses of her generation. Election is smart and often funny. Too smart for mass appeal, one of this year's best. And this reviewer gave it a 10 out of 10. And I think that is part of the thing. Expose... Actually, yeah, just briefly. This one reviewer said, exposes the dullers who praise it as the very suckers who promote the divisions among people under the pretense of virtuous moral insight. And I think it would be difficult for me to disagree more with that statement. This is very specifically a movie that doesn't really... I mean, you could say that it does criticize Tracy, but other than that, it's not a movie that feels above all these people and their actions. The most relatable characters are the ones making mistakes. And I'm sorry if you don't think that people like Tracy Flick should be criticized, held to account for what they do. You're a very disturbed person, and I don't know, I hope your children grow up to vote very differently than you do, I guess, yeah. I'm not saying you don't vote or something, obviously, I'm in favor of democracy, but, yeah. It's an interesting enough premise, and it's executed with a Rushmore light kind of feel to it. It's been forever since I watched Rushmore, so I can't say for sure if I agree with that part of it. Satirical scalpel that refuses to let you know exactly when or whom it's going to cut. So precise, so hilarious, so biting, so smart, so perfect in every one of its minute details that it comes as a sort of godsend. And he gave it a 4 out of 4. If satire is simply a witty exaggeration of ordinary events, then this is satire at its brightest. And he gave it an A on the A-F scale. And I would have to agree with every single word. And that I do think that satire is this witty. I find that the best satire is the one that is the closest to simply, acting out, showing exactly what someone is saying or doing, why they're doing it, and what it's going to lead to, what it really means. I've always found that to be the very best. I think the more you have to move away from that, I'm not saying that that's... I think it's less satirical, maybe. It's not less... It can still be incredibly funny, but I do find that that's my personal favorite kind of satire. Satirical joy due mainly to the performances of Reese Witherspoon as Tracy, Matthew Broderick as McAllister, Chris Klein as Paul, and especially Jessica Campbell as Tammy. And I would have to agree that if like they made a spin-off that was purely where Tammy was the sole protagonist, I would definitely watch that. Payne understands satire and possesses an innate ability to go for the jugular. But sometimes his deft and subcutaneous, I don't know that word, touch is too uncomfortable. I meant to look that up, but no. is too uncomfortable, and I see what, again, I have such a pitch black sense of humor that it takes a lot to make me uncomfortable, unless you are just being hateful, but yeah, towards someone who doesn't deserve it. Reese Witherspoon may well find that this is a defining role in her early career. If you're hateful towards Nazis, it's, yeah. As Tracy Flick, Witherspoon perfectly toes the line between cute and irritating, and that's, yeah, that's a really big part of, yeah. The satire of the season, a hilarious, razor-sharp indictment of the American dream. An invigoratingly mordant comedy that proves that Alexander Payne's rambunctious debut, Citizen Ruth, was no fluke. American satire rarely comes more winning than Election, an exuberantly caustic comedy that shows the symbiotic relationship between political go-gettism and moral backsliding. One of the funniest, shrewdest, smartest movies in recent memory. A wonderful, piercing, and hilarious examination of high school politics and how bitter and ruinous it can become. With Election, Payne announces himself as one of the keenest purveyors of the scattered pieces that once was an American morality. Alexander Payne's scathing, subtle, and complexly funny tragic comedy builds a perfect off-kilter universe. It's a first cousin to Rushmore. This is a nearly flawless film, cheerful nightmare that knows just where it wants to go and uses precisely calibrated comic effects to get there. Election is a bracingly intelligent adult comedy that shrewdly captures adolescence, resonates with the fluorescent horror of real-life high school, something few movies about this generation have managed to successfully capture, and I would have to agree. Wickedly funny, scathingly original new comedy brandishes the sort of intelligent wit and bracing nastiness that will make it more appealing to discerning adults than to teens who just want to have fun. When it comes to eloquently telling it like it is, Election puts the nation's political pundits to shame. Election has the sharpest satire of any teen movie made in years. Like the best lampoons, it attacks by exaggerating reality ever so slightly and targeting a broad range of subjects. A terrific work of political and social satire set in a Nebraska high school that has the intelligence of the less coherent Rushmore, and again, I don't remember Rushmore enough to say, while painting a much darker picture of politics and human relationships. The actors are solid at every precision, but Broderick, who seems to get better with each performance, is especially good at playing the impulsively self-destructive yet sympathetic loser. Alexander Payne is a director whose satire is omnidirectional. He doesn't choose an easy target and march on it. He stands in the middle of his story and attacks on all directions. Election is a dark comedy with a resemblance to Rushmore. It's smart no matter what. Wickedly funny, an ode to youthful overachievers that's as black-hearted as Rushmore was gently sentimental. And that, I would say, is that, as far as I remember, is quite accurate, yeah. Witherspoon's broad, obsessive comic performance is bound to get the most attention, but Broderick does the best work of his career, finding an affecting spot between the all-purpose Defiance Ferris Bueller and the put-upon foil of his recent work. The screenplay by Payne and Jim Taylor, based on the novel by Tom Perrotta, sees the lives of these suburban students and teachers through a prism of absurdity that refracts more truth than any straightforward telling. At best, the humor in Election is perceptive, nasty, pointed, and lets no one off its barbed hook, not even the audience. In other words, it's a lowly piece of satire made all the more relevant by the setting. Happily, this irreverent, sharply observant comedy sweeps up into the maelstrom too. Amid the glut of teen movies rolling out of the studios every week, Election deserves special attention. Director Payne, who adapted Tom Perotta's novel with Jim Taylor, has an authentically dire view of human behavior, which he expresses in crisp, edgy, and sometimes startlingly raunchy style. The treatment of this touch material is impressive, and I already read that one. I don't always remember to remove the doubles, since I get reviews from more than one site. Election is finally necessarily as much about sex as it is about politics. Wanting it, getting it, losing it. I would have to agree. And this one reviewer, he gave it a 67 out of 100. He said, often distastefully juvenile, and I mean, sometimes, maybe, yeah. Excuse me. And thoughts. Please note that this video has spoilers for the subject. Notes taken while watching, and again, as with my other recent videos, this is where, of movies at least, this is where the most of the notes I've taken, you know, during or after watching it this time, and then I do also have a number of notes in here in the spoiler section, because that's where they belong, that I took between last time I watched it and this time I watched, which I forget, but it's probably been at least a month. But yeah, I loved my job, past tense, so we know already that he will lose his job, but not yet how. And, you know, in class, he keeps picking someone other than Tracy to speak on ethics. You know, he really badly wants someone else to, yeah. And, you know, Tracy talks about how, in voiceover, how she, you know, she tried to become part of any of these groups as long as I could lead it. And Dave puts 3 times a lady on the stereo. And I love that the love letter is seen by the audience for the first and only time as though we're the one reading it. And then it's lowered and Dave is sitting there clearly in trouble. Then it cuts to a view where we can see that he's sitting across from the principal and that Jim is also there in the room. It just, yeah, the perfect way to, because in just a few moments, you know, the movie could, so many movies would have had, like, her, you know, first, you know, the first thing we see is, like, her face, and then she takes the love letter and starts reading it, and, you know, you have her reaction, and then maybe her going to her mother, and then cut to the you know, sitting in front of the principal and this whole thing. But we read it and we immediately understand. We understand how he Yeah, he was that stupid. I mean, by this point, we've already heard that, he told Jim that they had sex in Dave's house. Really just breaking all the rules, to quote, yeah. And then you read this love letter, which, especially there by the end, just, it's so desperate and so just, and he thought that they could go, yeah, he in his, yeah, in being in love with Tracy, he legitimately thought that the two of them could go to Maui. I we don't know for sure, but I could imagine that her I I don't think Tracy herself was necessarily shocked by it, but I could imagine, obviously she showed it to her mother. I could imagine that basically she showed it to her mother, and like saying, could I maybe do that between high school and college, or some kind of thing. I don't know exactly. Maybe she did. Maybe she was uncomfortable, because of the letter. But yeah, it didn't. If Tracy had said yes, and they would even, I mean, as far as I know, if obviously she's still a minor at that point, can she even travel outside of the country without parental permission? Like, so he really just, he didn't think this through at all. He really, obviously, Tracy's mother was not going to take it well. Yeah. And I love that the freeze frames sometimes makes the character it freezes on look really dumb. And this early one with Tracy in class talking about ethics. That's one of the, she has like her eyes closed and her mouth open. It just looks, yeah. And when she talks to Jim at the car, she's so eager and he's so ready to just go home and get, yeah, it's not necessarily that he like actively hates her during class and such, but just he's done with school and now she's standing there talking, and it's like, I'm I'm off work, can I please just leave? And she's like, I really want this to get through, so that I can be working on this, so I can start working on it immediately. And yeah. Now, I haven't seen Broderick in many things, and I haven't watched Ferris Bueller. I have seen Godzilla 1997, Inspector Gadget 1, and probably at least one other movie that I should feel terrible for having watched when I haven't watched Ferris Bueller. But I do like him in this movie a lot. I love the melodrama of Paul's why, he's reacting as though he's just been told he has an inoperable tumor or something, and he's so sad just because he can't play ball. You have that shot of him just standing there looking out into the horizon like, what am I supposed to do now? Dude, it's a broken leg. It's gonna heal. It's not like, yeah, just... Sometimes life taps you on the shoulder. It happened to me. No, you don't understand. It literally happened to him. Like, someone tapped him on the shoulder, see? And Jim is giving this, talking about all of Paul's accomplishments, and then he says, what does that spell? And Paul just sits there, a dopey grin on his face. Like, he doesn't even try to answer that. He just, or shrug, or go, oops, or anything, just, yeah. And I noted on this viewing that the boy helping Tracy with the poster, I'm fairly certain he's the one who gives her the thumbs up that confirms she won. So I guess maybe he does like her in general. I don't know. Maybe he just helps everybody with their posters. I don't know. I love Tracy's suspicion of Paul and her confused face when he brings up that he and Jim talked about different kinds of fruit. Because Paul, he doesn't think about how nonsensical what he's saying sounds. Just, I don't know, you know, Mr. McAllister came in, we talked about my broken leg, we talked about different kinds of fruit, and just, you know, I mean, he's basically saying exactly what he's thinking. He doesn't necessarily completely understand how he ended up sitting there trying to get people to write so that he could, you know, campaign for president. He's just like, well, we were sitting there and we were talking about politics and different kinds of fruit, and just yeah. And everyone's staring at her as she walks off because of this outburst of hers. And then, you know, Paul goes home and he takes a banana, you know, discounting the you know, the one orange and the several apples. Just, yeah. Oh, and this already happened, but I forgot to mention, I do love that Tracy manages to open 5 legs on a 4-legged table because she's such an overachiever. And Paul is so happy to tell Tammy about the presidential campaign. He really doesn't understand. Like, you know, it's like, don't you knock? And don't you fucking knock, I think she says. And, like, I mean, he knocked, but he didn't wait for a reply. You know, it's not enough to, yeah. And he doesn't at all realize that they were in the middle of this conversation. You know, Lisa's happy to just run off, but Tammy wanted to, you know, yeah, actually have a conversation. She's clearly the more, you know, I mean, she wanted to talk her back into it, I'm sure, but also just, you know, have a conversation. You're 2 adults, soon to be adults, you know, actually have a conversation about what's going on. You know, that it was clearly fairly serious to certainly to Tammy. So yeah, Lisa owes her that. Now, but yeah, you know, Paul comes in and he's like, "Oh, you're never gonna believe I'm gonna be campaigning for president," and just he doesn't at all notice that there's this like this tension in the room, and he just politely steps aside to let Lisa pass. Just, yeah. And Paul's poster says politician. That's Lisa's genius PR advice. That, yeah. And Tammy's following them around surreptitiously. She's basically stalking them to, yeah. And Jim and I forget, is it Ruth? I don't know. You know, his wife. You know, they have such workmanlike sex. You know, from like the mood and the atmosphere, you might think they were building an IKEA table or something. And Linda goes, "That's not funny." And the music slows down and stops. And then to his wife, he's like, "I don't know, she's a little much, you know." And Tracy looks so hurt that Paul gets cheered on before he even starts his speech. And Paul does immediately applaud Tammy. She's about, you know, she gets up and is about to give her speech. And, you know, Tammy delivers her speech, and that got the Eat Me kids into politics. And the poster the poster coming ungluing from the wall is like a personal insult to Tracy. You know, if she works so hard, it's going to be perfect. It's a poster, you know, it's not, I mean, but to her, it's just like, you know, it's like in like Black Swan, like basically everything comes apart at this one tiny imperfection. And one of Paul's posters says, "Metzler, you Betzler." And her hands are actually slightly bloody from the intensity of tearing these posters down, you know, like tiny paper cuts, I guess, or something. And Linda's kid is watching the sex. Well, I guess all he sees is shapes. He sees shapes fucking. And Jim imagines himself cool in a cool car, shades, and reality abruptly reasserts itself when he arrives at the school. And Paul is so naive, he really does see the best in everyone. And Jim is just sitting, you know, he's like, I can't, no, Tammy couldn't have, no one could have intentionally torn down our posters. Who would do that? No. It must have been by accident that all of them were torn down. It's a lot of accidents. I think I should, I want to just touch up this poster just real briefly. Oh, whoops, there it goes. Maybe I should go over and touch up this other poster and just, yeah. And Jim is sitting there clearly just thinking about sex with Linda while everyone else in the room is upset about the posters. He couldn't care less about the election. And as every conservative caught red-handed, she insists that people without power are the ones responsible for what she did wrong. And Tammy's so bad at playing guilty, she can't come up with any of the details to prove that she did it, figuring that the torn down for what posters is enough. See, as every school student ever has always known, when the teacher does a pop quiz, it's for his own needs. It's not to help you graduate. He's fucking you just so he can fuck someone else. Obviously, I'm joking. Both of my parents are teachers. Were teachers. You know, retired now. And Jim puts so much effort into setting up with the cheating, just all these little details, and just, yeah. And we see the bees by the apple tree as Jim calls for Linda, setting up that they're, yeah. And Mr. Metzler to Tammy is like, your mother is extremely upset and I've been drinking beer. And the Metzlers literally give Tammy exactly what she wanted. She's out of the school she can't stand, she'll be surrounded by girls. And her father doesn't even get, he's like, well, is that funny to you? He doesn't stop to think, wait a second, why is she so happy about this? Maybe I should think of something else to punish her, because she just, yeah. And it is also, you know, he says, oh, your mother's at the end of her rope. And the mother's like, let's please calm down just a little bit. And Tracy has several motivational posters that, that didn't do what I had expected it to do. There we go. Still learning. I am new to smartphones. Still pretty used to the stupid ones. But yeah, you know, Tracy has several motivational posters and honors on her wall in her bedroom. And Jim walks into the high school and just looks so down. And Tracy looks so chipper and is just, ugh. And Jim has to sit there and erase Tammy's name from all the ballots. Just, yeah, being a teacher is such a thankless job. And Tracy goes up to get her, you know, ballot. And, hi, Tracy. Tracy Enid Flick. I know. It's like, even at that, clearly they know who you are. You know, it's not, yeah. And Paul clearly really does mean his wish to Tracy of good luck. And Tracy's just like, oh, get away from me, you non-overachiever, you. You know, I mean, it's completely clear. She hates him. She can't stand him. When really, he hasn't done anything to her. You know, I get that being frustrated when you have worked really hard for something and you might not get it, and someone else who hasn't worked extremely hard for it might get it. But you know, to go from that to like personally hate the person, you know, just don't hate the player, hate the game of football because it makes people popular who don't overachieve. You know, just, you know, I get it, but just, he didn't do anything to her. On the contrary, he's always nice to her. And, you know, teachers are frequently pressed for time. They're not always calling their would-be mistresses. And Jim returns to the counting room, frustrated from the call with Linda, where she refuses to take any responsibility for that. And, you know, the kid says, oh, it's close, just one vote. And Jim has that face, you know, hamster wheels turning, coming up with an idea that, yeah. I love how careful the kid looks before the thumbs up, and then he does such a non-subtle one. I mean, he almost might as well be holding up a sign saying, yes, you won, Tracy, or something. And Tracy starts hopping around, instead of just making sure she's just barely out of view of anyone in the counting room. Instead, and she gets her dumb ass spotted and immediately jumps away as if he didn't clearly see her already. You know, not like, you know, I'm sorry, if I was in that situation, you know, okay, eye contact with the teacher and just mouth, you know, so just, yeah. For the people who are looking at other tabs, I mouthed sorry, you know, just something instead of, yeah, you know, as if her jumping away like that is somehow going to erase the fact that she was clearly seen. And now that Tracy knows she won, she can be polite to Paul again. You know, she could be it before he was a contender in the race. And he, you know, I would at least figure that she, I'm not sure we see that, but yeah, you know. And now that she knows she won, yeah, sure, you know, it's because that was yeah. And Tracy gets up right before the name is announced and has to sheepishly sit back down. And Paul is so genuinely honored. He really means, you know, oh, I'm gonna do my very best. And he really means the concern he expresses for Tracy. And she's crying like her life is coming to an end, you know. And Tracy's mom, take one of my pills, you'll feel better. That is so messed up. And on the commentary track, the director also says people always laugh at that line. I always thought it was too disturbing. Yeah. And Tracy's mom, who's got it going on, she's all you'd ever want, and you've waited for so long, goes, maybe you needed more posters. If you'd just taken my suggestions about the speech, I don't know, we'll figure it out. You know, sometime later on when you're not so close to it, we're going to analyze and we're going to figure out exactly, which is the absolute last thing Tracy wants to hear right now. Just, yeah, like, Mom, you're the reason she's crying this hard. It's your constant pressure to always, you know, just for once, just let it go and just say, I'm sorry, honey, just, you know, you know, if just you know, not everything, we can't win at everything, and just, you know, I'll be here if you need to talk or something. But nope, instead it's just, you know, I know you worked really hard on this, but you could probably work just a little bit harder, you know. I'm just saying, this was probably your fault. Just, wow. And then the shaving thing won't come out of the machine, and Jim just unloads on it. And Jim, you know, says, you know, this worked out okay. Nobody was dead. Aiming high. What a Trumpian standard for, you know, oh, we could have messed up a lot worse. I love the faces, just the strong disappointment and anger on everyone in the room when Jim goes into the principal's office, and such a sad and like reflective face on Tracy's face before walking out to accept the honor. You know, the graduation thing. Just again, a lot of this happiness of hers and smiling and such, it's very clearly enacted. I don't think all of it is, but a lot of it, yeah. And she, you know, Dave was like, sometimes people who work extremely hard, sometimes they're lonely, and she there at the end has changed that into, to be great you have to be lonely. So it's like he's showing some sympathy towards her and saying, I I can understand you might be lonely because you work really hard at this. And she's like, I have to make sure that there are no people close to me because I won't be great. Yeah, just, man, she's messed up. I love the images used for Jim's voiceover there at the end, especially before we realize he went to New York. And it's like, where does a man go when he's cast out? And you see these, like, I can never tell them. Is it a Neanderthal? Is it I don't know. And then and where can he go? And then he pops up on screen, right this way. And Wiki. Election is a 1999 American black comedy drama, film directed and written by Alexander Payne and adapted by him and Jim Taylor from Tom Perrotta's 1998 novel of the same title. The plot revolves around a high school election and satirizes both suburban high school life and politics. And, excuse me. Yeah, Jim McAllister, a popular high school social studies teacher in suburban Omaha, Nebraska. Reese Witherspoon is Tracy Flick. And yeah, when Tracy qualifies to run for class president, McAllister believes she does not deserve the title, tries his best to stop her from winning. And yeah, and the box office bomb, the film Election received critical acclaim. The film received an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, a Golden Globe nomination for Witherspoon, the Best Actress category, and the Independent Spirit Award for Best Film in 1999. And Jim McAllister is a beloved high school teacher living in the suburbs of Omaha, Nebraska, whose enthusiastic involvement in school activities masks his frustration with other aspects of his life. Tracy Flick is an overachieving senior with a secret, vindictive, and sexual side. And early in the year, Tracy had an affair with another teacher, Jim's best friend, Dave Novotny. When the affair was discovered, Dave was fired and divorced by his wife, Linda. Tracy, however, walked away with her reputation unscathed. Tracy announces to Jim, who is in charge of organizing the school student government, that she's running for student body president, telling him that they will be spending a lot of time together. Jim finds Tracy's unbridled ambition and sexual manipulation repugnant. Tracy appearing to have no opposition, Jim decides to teach Tracy a lesson in humility by encouraging another student, Paul Metzler, to enter the race. Paul is a polite and popular football player who has been sidelined due to a broken leg, leaving him depressed. Jim convinces Paul to declare his candidacy, giving him new purpose. This serves to bring out Tracy's vindictiveness as she resents Paul's effortless popularity. Meanwhile, Paul's younger sister Tammy is dumped by her lover Lisa, who says that she is straight and was just experimenting. Lisa quickly becomes Paul's new girlfriend and campaign manager, in part to antagonize Tammy. In retaliation, Tammy decides to run for president as well, with a nihilistic platform that student government is a sham. During a school assembly to hear the candidates' final campaign speeches, Tracy draws only polite applause, while Paul initially receives a warm reception despite giving a lackluster and halting speech, while Tammy delivers a defiant address in which she denounces the election and expresses her intention to dissolve the student government if elected. This rallies the student body to a standing ovation. As a result of her subversive speech, Tammy is suspended and her name removed from the ballot. While working on a yearbook project at school 2 nights later, Tracy notices that one of her posters has come untaped from the wall. In her attempt to fix it, she accidentally rips the poster apart. In a fit of frustrated rage, she destroys and removes all of Paul's campaign posters. The following day, when Jim confronts Tracy with his suspicion that she was responsible, he claims innocence, threatens legal action against the school. Tammy falsely confesses to Tracy's crime, even though she had witnessed Tracy disposing of the refuse by the town factory. Tammy is expelled and her parents enroll her in private parochial school for girls, much to her delight. On the day before the election, Jim pays to Linda's house to the home repair project. She initiates a physical relationship by kissing him, asks him to rent a motel room for after-school rendezvous. She apparently has a change of heart and never shows up at the motel. When Jim drives over to Linda's house to see what happened, he heads to the backyard. He has the misfortune of being stung by a bee, causing severe allergic reaction. And yeah, skipping a little bit. After all the ballots are tabulated, it turns out Tracy is won by a single vote. Ironically, Tracy's one-vote margin of victory came about because Paul Metzler, feeling it would be somehow dishonorable to vote for himself, voted for Tracy instead. And let's see. Yeah, he secretly disposes the ballots, and when a janitor discovers the 2 discarded ballots, presents them to the principal, Jim is forced to resign. His wife kicks him out of the house, and yeah, becomes tour guide. Paul gets into the University of Nebraska. Tammy couldn't be happier at her all-girls school. She finds a new girlfriend. Towards the end of the film, Jim encounters Tracy Flick one last time on a trip to Washington, D.C., and she gets into the scene. And the film ends with Jim speaking to a group of elementary school students on a field trip to the museum, refusing to respond to the raised hand of an overeager girl who reminds him of Tracy Flick. And I love that. Just as long as he's going to be like teaching, young people, he's going to encounter Tracy Flick types. Obviously, there's always going to be this kind of, and yeah, and it doesn't help that much that this one is, 8 instead of, 16 or yeah, just. And let's see, Alexander Payne had in mind Matthew Broderick for the part of Jim. It was his role as popular student Ferris Bueller Day Off, be an ironic twist on his well-known character, as he would now be the authority figure, a teacher who is respected by students. The film uses a number of stylized techniques in storytelling, particularly through the use of freeze frames, flashbacks, and voiceovers, which allows sections of the narrative to be delivered from the points of view of the 4 main characters. And this is from the Wikipedia of the novel. Black comedy about high school history teacher who attempts to sabotage, manipulate overly ambitious girls, campaign to become school president. And there we go. On plot. Now, I am a feminist, and I'm going to try to avoid saying things that are sexist. I don't think the film means for them to be, and certainly I work hard not to be sexist. If I do say something sexist, I apologize. Now, I have been known to overanalyze and perceive things in movies and such that aren't necessarily there. So here we go. Let's extrapolate the events of this movie from the microcosm of a high school setting to the macrocosm of a country. I personally love when, say, South Park has one of my absolute favorite episodes of South Park is the one where Cartman is basically being Rush Limbaugh, and I suppose I shouldn't give away too much, but yeah, just the way that comments on how easy it is to sit and not have to take responsibility for any decisions made by powerful people, who have. There's always going to be some limitation on their power, and they always have to work within it's super easy to just sit there and say that the person, the president, and in that case it's of, it's also student bodies, yeah, or in Rush Limbaugh's case of the country, and just say these just absurdly and really mean things about just really ugly and hateful things when they themselves, and just I'm just gonna go ahead. I personally, I love when Wendy then goes ahead and gives Eric the power, and she adds to she goes along with the narrative he presents of turning her into a monster, and goes and says, well, you cast yourself as the hero, here you go and heroically improve the government by the, and then you have the, then the kid who should have been the voice on the school radio thing, he does get the, to be, and then he criticizes Cartman the way Cartman criticized Wendy, and the moment that even that one, criticism is, presented, Eric immediately runs away crying, just completely, and just, it's pitch perfect. Anyway, so yes, overanalysis. At the start, we meet the candidate everyone expects to win, and the further we get into the film, the more we realize she's a fascist. And it really, even from very early on, it's very clear that she is, she's not a nice person. She presents this, she smiles at people whilst thinking that they're awful, And, obviously I am talking about Tracy Flick, but I'm also speaking in general about the type of person and situation. She smiles at people while thinking of them as weak saboteurs of her success. She hates those who don't work hard and study hard. And she doesn't think they deserve to do well. Which, again, anyone can understand frustration, if you work extremely hard at something and then someone who didn't work hard at it gets, they do better than you did. That's frustrating, but that's not a reason to hate someone and to be as vicious as she is. And and there at the very end, we see her at her young age getting into the limo of a Republican senator. She really will go national with her hatred of most people. When praying, she expresses a conviction that she's doing the Lord's work. Her immediate reaction to the introduction into the race of other candidates, rivals for the position that she's certain she deserves, isn't one of respect, but of trying to undermine them. I know you don't really want this, so someone must have gotten you to do it. those votes aren't worth as much because those voters aren't successful. I don't even believe this particular vote is a real person. She faked that signature. And Paul, the first challenger, is a populist who is immediately obvious in his lack of interest in understanding of the election and the position. The second challenger does it to personally get even with someone who intentionally hurt her. None of these are the right reasons for trying to get into a more powerful position. I'm going to sound like a complete idealist here, but yeah, ideally you do it because you think that you have really great ideas for how to improve things by using this power, and you've worked hard to understand what that position entails, and you respect other people, including the people who disagree with you, and you're going to try to. I'm not saying that you should just lay down as the Democrats too often do when Republicans push. You push back, you push harder, you make sure to win, but you don't think of them as like lesser people just because, although again I would argue that they're often doing it, knowing that they're making lives worse for a ton of regular people whilst helping only a few really rich people who pay them. But yeah, returning to Jim talks Paul into running simply to harpoon Tracy. Ultimately, does anyone believe in the integrity of the race and position other than that one student who correctly counts the votes? Even though the one beside him, gives away the result before it's been confirmed. If hypothetically the other kid had miscounted, then he basically just lied by confirming to her that she had won. It hadn't yet been determined, And once it comes to the speeches, it's clear that those Tracy hates hate her right back, interrupting her speech, to which she demands the authorities there be consequences. And Paul has terrible presentation, reading a speech everyone knows Lisa wrote for him. If he fumbles such an important speech, will he be able to accomplish much if he gets the seat? Will he just sit there and just read, Again, this question only has an impact when considering the movie as an allegory for real elections, and presentation does matter. There was that one, debate, I guess it was, where Kennedy and Nixon, the people who watched it on TV felt that, I think they felt that Nixon won, whilst the people listening on the radio felt that Kennedy won. And yeah, presentation, it really matters. And obviously, Nixon, there are far bigger problems with Nixon than his presentation and how well he did at debates against Kennedy. But yeah. Paul with the speech, he knows he has to make an impression, and we know he has confidence and is a positive-minded person. He has the confidence to stand up there and be able to deliver, but he didn't put in like effort. I mean, I know full well it can be extremely scary to talk to a lot of people, and and there was, watch me the very earliest videos I did, I had much worse presentation. It's something you get via practice, and I get that he hasn't had that much time but put in a little practice every single day, memorize the speech, get really good at presenting it, at making just, he has confidence, so he should be able to, via practice, get to that, and we know that he's not, he's a very positive-minded person. He is depressed when he finds that he can't, play football, but then we do see that, the moment that it's then suggested, why don't you run for president here? He's not like, oh, why bother? It's not football. No, he's like, yeah, I could do that. I could be president. Oh man, and he can't wait to tell his sister about it, and he's super excited about it. So it's again, obviously people who are very depressed have a hard time giving a speech that is supposed to have like a positive. I mean, he is saying, vote for me. He's trying to get them. He's not trying to talk them, into, I don't know, skipping school or something. He's not. Yeah, he's trying to encourage them. So, yeah. Did I get text? Just real quick, see if it's super important. There we go. Did remember to put the phone on silent this time. And yeah, and he does want to win, and he believes he can. Otherwise, he wouldn't put so much effort into it. Given he wasn't even interested before Jim convinced him. But he's like, I mean, obviously Lisa is the one who understands this PR kind of stuff, but he's not like, he could try to just lazily have her do all the work, but clearly he's putting in a lot of effort as well. She's the one, guiding, but yeah, he does put a lot of effort into it, and yeah, there's he's not like one of the eat me kids who clearly just, no, he wants this to. And Tammy, the third candidate, receives even less respect than Tracy did, yet doesn't feel the need to call on the authorities present. I guess Tracy doesn't make that big a deal out of it, but if like she could easily have made, like, when the principal comes in and talks and says, you're acting like children right now. She could easily, it's okay, or something. But no, she clearly thinks that it's, yeah. But yeah, Tammy, instead, she passionately delivers the message she went there to deliver. And again, passionately. She is, she actually, she doesn't care if she does win or not. But she's passionate about who cares, yeah. But yeah, the message she went there to deliver, one of openly calling for the dismantling of the position. Comparatively, Tracy wants to abuse the power she doesn't want anyone else to have. Tammy isn't a fascist. She's basically an anarchist. If I'm using that correctly, there was that recent video by Renegade, well, recent, maybe it's a month now or something, but made me think if I'm understanding anarchist correctly. But yeah, in saying, or don't vote for me, who cares, don't vote at all, she makes it clear she doesn't want the power at all. She doesn't want Lisa to win. And, she doesn't even mind Tracy winning ultimately. Otherwise, why not only cover for her, but demand to be blamed for what Tracy did? I mean, you could say that, oh, she wants to be expelled. She can do other things to get expelled. She's, well, didn't they say she's a sophomore, or I don't think she was a junior, but she's a sophomore, not a senior. She's got plenty of time to come up with stuff to do to get expelled. And, there's also the rebelling, which for a teenager makes a ton of sense. For a candidate, if she was trying to run for President of the United States, there would really be, like, if she tried hard to win that, and that was her message, that was her platform, that would be a really, I forget, I think maybe it's somewhere on Wikipedia that says, she's basically got this nihilistic platform, and yeah. And the response to her speech is rousing applause. And, obviously teenagers don't care that much. you know, they certainly, they don't want to sit there for a really long time and listen to speeches, and they don't care about that election, at least. And a lot probably don't care that much about democracy in general. Do a majority of adult voters care that much about democracy in general? You know, you look at the turnout, and yeah, while I do admit there are other factors at play. And once Tracy has the position, she clearly pushes through what she wants, facing little and disorganized resistance from the council, who weren't prepared for her force. You know, they're being teenagers dealing with something kind of important. They're kind of insecure, and like, you know, I mean, I guess, you know, but she pushes it through. And, you know, Jim is very repressed. Tracy has it right that he's frustrated. Many teachers are. And I love him trying to rationalize how, you know, he's like, oh, she didn't really, you know, beat me, in the conflict between the two of them. And, you know, ultimately just going, who the fuck does she think she is? And throwing the cup at the limo, and just, yeah. And when Jim casually walks into the principal's office, not expecting anything big, you see the janitor there, and a quick clip reminding us that Jim accidentally threw something on the floor that the janitor had to clean up. You know, he meant to throw it into the garbage can, but he was just distracted. And the janitor, he found the 2 votes that Jim threw out. And, you know, there's some chance that he's daily looked through Jim's trash, or at least he jumped at finding the votes. I mean, really, other than possibly integrity, what does he care who's student body president? It's not. But yeah, you know, he was hoping to find something to get him fired, or at least jumping at the opportunity to. And, you know, there's that one critic who pointed out that the film is about power and sex, and really there's some power in all sex and some sex in all power, and the movie explores different people wanting power and sex, why they want it, when it comes to power, what they want the power for. Tracy wants to climb further up, Paul wants to help people, and Tammy wants to get rid of as much authority as she can. Whose idea it was that they get the power. For Tracy, it was her mother. For Paul, it was Jim. But for Tammy, it was her own. And obviously, it is wrong for an adult to have sex with someone not of age. The other sexual relationships, which I'm going to briefly discuss, they are mutual, and yet they tend to either, you know, be wrong or be called wrong. And, you know, one partner may blame the other, refusing to accept that they themselves, too, wanted the sex. And sex in general is taboo, especially in this kind of environment, social and physical, that this is set in. Lisa wants to prove she's straight and punish Tammy for making her like a lesbian. So out of all the guys in school, and rather than waiting, you know, very much time, she chooses Tammy's brother. And, you know, I think an argument could be made that Paul should turn Lisa down, but he's probably too naive to understand that it's revenge sex, that Lisa was even with Tammy rather than just, oh, they're two friends. And, you know, girls don't have sex with girls, girls have sex with boys, you know, so, and, you know, and that guys doing something sexual can upset girls. And Linda blames Jim for her helping him cheat on his own wife, and really Jim and his wife aren't that into each other, but they want kids. You know, that one isn't cheating, and obviously Lisa and Tammy together isn't wrong. They're both, you know, they're the same age, or just about, you know, they're both in high school, and being a lesbian isn't wrong. I know that comes as a shock to some people. And, you know, it's worth noting that in the film, the sex scandals hit the men, but not the women who claim or are claimed to be innocent victims. And with all due respect, you know, when it comes to Linda and Jim, you know, Linda knew what, yeah, she knew Jim was married, and that, you know, and that she would be helping him cheat on his wife. And yeah, let's see. And you know, and as for the relationship between Dave and Tracy, when Tracy faces the implied possible threat of having the scandal revealed, she lawyers up, defiant in her utter lack of respect for the clearly competent figure of authority that she currently has less power than. How far will she go once she has far more authority as a senator or significant voice in the ear of one? And earlier, you know, she was quite happy to have the principal, you know, scold the students for interrupting her speech. You know, basically, when she can use those of authority to her gain, she's quite happy to. But when she's the one, you know, yeah. Let's see. And one can even laugh at the darkness of her newfound power at the end, if, yeah, if your sense of humor is dark enough. You know, when she's sitting there with, you know, and Jim is asking her about the posters, she's sitting there clearly in the wrong, even if he can't currently prove it, and she appears to feel no shame. She hides evidence with remarkable skill, and when the evidence turns back up, she's scared she'll be caught, but still not ashamed. She doesn't, yeah. And in frustration over the accidental destruction of her own one poster, since she has the chance to, she tears down all the posters of Paul, and yeah, becoming a weak saboteur of a strong, not physically, that part isn't important here, but popularity-wise, you know, what she hates the most, sabotaging the democratic process at such little provocation, and then not coming clean, proving, as she did when faced with competition, she's using the democratic process. She doesn't actually believe in it. You know, early on she says that she believes in the voter, but she clearly doesn't. She's just saying they should vote for me. They shouldn't vote for him because he didn't work hard for it. And again, it's a position you can understand, but she moves beyond the frustration that is reasonable to feel when someone who, yeah, when someone gets power they, you know, they didn't work hard for, and that they might not be able to wield well. She goes beyond that into hatred of the person, which, you know, I mean, I hate Donald Trump, but not because, you know, the fact that he became president, the thing that bothers me is that he's, you know, from the moment he announced his campaign, everybody, we all knew that he was never going to be able to be qualified for the position, and then the fact that we know that he's going to use it to hurt people who have less power than him. You know, the fact that he's, you know, I mean, back when he was just a reality show star, and I mean, we already knew that he was an asshole, but the yeah, if, you know, there are other reality show hosts that I don't hate, you know, so it's not, yeah. Now, let's see. From commentary. And this is from the director's commentary. So most of what I'm about to read here in this section are his quotes. And yeah, at the start, Jim is running in circles, the exercise. Trace is defined by straight lines, not circles. And the fence maze at the start makes him look like a small man, a rat trapped in a maze. Excuse me. And another theme is trash and people throwing things away. Excessive use of garbage cans, people throwing things away. And he points out, Tracy says if Mr. McAllister hadn't meddled the way he did, we see him throwing something away, a hint at how he meddled, and and he literally is throwing away a little small piece of paper or something. So, yeah. And visually, the high school is a factory or a prison. Who are the prisoners? The teachers or the students. And the director hadn't seen Ferris Bueller when he made the film. He says in the commentary, by the time you hear the commentary, he might have. And Tracy is more sexual in the novel. The director wanted her young and innocent. She's the victim in the sexual relationship, and that definitely, it makes a huge difference. I can see things where they could have made her, when he talks to her and at the car, and she's like, I want our relationship to be harmonious. I don't know if that's directly from the book or very similar to something, but I could see how that could have been played very sexually, that she's trying to use her sexuality to manipulate him into, doing what she wants. And there you can also see this kind of, this frustration, and that would especially play into if he saw her as very sexual also, which he does in part, in part due to Dave's relationship. When you have the fill me up scene, if he saw Tracy as very sexual, then after Linda says that it was his fault, and she refuses any blame in it, then yeah, you could see how he would think, Tracy's just like Linda, and he's tired of women like that in his life, hurting him with their sexuality when he didn't go into it with any ill intent. In both cases, the election and the relationship with Linda. But yeah, and apparently scripted and shot was taking off the clothes and sex with Tracy, not into it, and waiting for Dave to finish. That would have hugely changed our view on her. And yeah, I think the movie is better without that scene. Yeah. And Citizen Ruth was a dry run for election. And Jim is trapped by the seatbelt. Most of Paul's ski fall is stock footage. And I tried to put more of the class distinction between Tracy and Paul in the film, but it was cut. And the Tammy and Lisa stuff is 16mm, and it's for a film school from the 60s feel. And he points out, Jim and his wife having sex. Even the sheets suggest sterility, absence of sexuality. And I wanted the cars to be dirty like in real life. Apples represent temptation. Jim is about to bite the apple. Teachers, temptation, and again the round. And the principal actor was perfect as a high school principal. And Reese apparently actually did the stunt falling with the posters, so that's, yeah. And most of the tearing posters down was done in single takes. It was Thanksgiving, we wanted to get the hell out of there. We cut out Tracy washing her hands but not getting them clean, a la Lady Macbeth, and her looking at her hands, a la Anthony Perkins in Psycho. The bee sting isn't in the novel, but they felt that there needed to be a new element, and we tried to think of the most ridiculous thing. I absolutely love the bee sting. Tried not to overload the fridge with stuff hanged up. It's become a convention for relocations to sets, but for the prayers we had to build sets and match them. And there was a cupcake making scene which was cut, which made it really clear that it's Tracy's mother who wants to win. And when Tracy admits she may not win, Tracy's mother would look at her in a kind of scary, disturbing way and say, "Tracy Flick will win." And I mean, it is, you can see in the film that it is her mother who wants her to win. She says, you know, my mother always pushed me for, you know, but she doesn't seem to think it's a bad thing, which the viewer might well. I like casting smaller parts with people who do that job in real life. It makes it credible, make actors look like they're actually what they're playing. And I'm not the only director who likes this. Shots of Broderick are skewed when the kid points out that Tracy did win. 2 votes must be missing. Through a lot of the film, you see Reese thinking, and he's eating apple pie. The apples have been crushed and cooked, and there he admits that that's maybe a reach. Audiences love "Take one of my pills, you'll feel better." I find it horrifying, and like I already said, I find it to be both. Before Jim walks into the principal's office, here Jim makes the biggest circle. It's almost as though the theme of the whole film is the revenge of the janitor. The editor paid me $75 to let him cut Jim in the office and everyone staring at him the way it is now. And in the excellent documentary, The Cutting Edge Magic of Movie Editing, and for anyone who has that and wants to watch that part of it, I know that it's around 23 minutes into it. I didn't know the exact. Payne and the editor also talk about this. Payne wanted it cut like the end sequence of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, holding on people's faces for a long time with the swelling music. Personally, I think that would have felt slow, and with that many people to cut between, I'm not entirely sure how it would have worked. You know, I mean, ultimately, and I mean, really, yeah, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but basically, the climax of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it is these 3 people ready to draw their guns and shoot each other. And for all 3, they're looking, you see their eyes going between the other 2, and for all 3, there's the realization, the moment I pull my gun to shoot one of them, if person A shoots person B, then person C might shoot person A. Seeing person A draw before person A is done shooting person B, and and if person A draws his gun, maybe he's not quite as quick on the draw, which is of course a huge thing in westerns, as quick on the draw as the person he's about to shoot. And just there's that kind of, that kind of tension, and it's a very different scene. Yeah, I would have liked to see what it would have looked like in their version so I could better judge it, because it's very different. I mean, you've got, I'm going to try to not get too bogged down in this, but just briefly, you have Jim, Tracy's mom, the principal, the janitor, the kid who counted, and that one guy who's like kind of balding, who I could never quite figure out what position he has, but he's clearly, he's there with the principal and Jim when they talk about the speech Tammy gave and stuff. But anyway, that's 7 people, not 3, so I don't know how you would do that. And at the end of the day, it's 6 people staring in judgment at one person. So it's not the same situation. It's, yeah, it's yeah, I don't quite know how that would have worked, but yeah. But yeah, just briefly, they talk about how basically, you know, yeah, they had this discussion about how to edit it, and the editor was like, I I want to cut it this way, and that's the way that it ended up in the film. And Alexander Payne was, I want to cut it like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And then the editor was like, I'll pay you $25. And Payne was like, no. How about I pay you $50? And then Payne was like, 75. And yeah, that's how it ended up. And back to director quotes. You know, even Jim is pursued by garbage until the very end. And he points out that you can't show the penis in the museum on an airplane, even though you can see it at the actual museum. You know, it's not a character's penis. It's that Neanderthal's penis. You know, it's it's what the human body looks like. It's, you know, it's not a big deal to people who don't make it a big deal. And no matter what Jim does, he can't escape the garbage. I like about this ending that things haven't changed. We are who we are. We can't escape that. Excuse me. IMDb stuff. And starting with trivia. The ending was reshot, presumably after poor test screenings. The original ending was closer to the novel, featuring Mr. McAllister working at a car dealership, Tracy going to visit him before she leaves for college. And having not seen it and having not read the book, I can't say, but I like the ending the way it is a lot. Her stepping into the limousine and specifically not coming to see him. She easily could have. You know, if she badly wanted to find him, you know, she has his full name, and just, yeah, excuse me, just the fact that she basically, now that he's not, you know, I mean, she did say, I think about Dave sometimes, but ultimately, that's another thing. I mean, if she really wanted, certainly she could, once she's an adult, she could contact him. You know, if she starts sending him letters before she comes of age, then that might be more trouble for him. But, you know, when you get her voiceover, it doesn't sound like she's still, certainly some of it is from her in college. And she's still talking in past tense. She said, when I got to college. She doesn't say now that I'm in college. So, yeah, her voiceover comes from after she graduates from college. And I forget the exact ages, but I would figure that by then she's an adult, and she's still saying, like, sometimes I think about Dave, you know, but she's happy to remove him from the pictures taken, you know. And yeah, if she really cared, she could easily contact him. She said that she cared. You know, she expresses that in the, yeah, you know, she says that he saw me, he saw the real me, and that was the first time. And yet, the moment that he's gone from her life, she doesn't reach out to him once, yeah. And when Paul is called into the office to be told the truth about the election, his Spanish class is conjugating the verb perder, meaning to lose. So, yeah. And the number of disregarded votes outnumbered those for both Tracy and Paul. Tammy would have won the election had she not been expelled. So that's, again, yeah, good commentary on. And, you know, the film doesn't make a huge deal out of this, but yeah, they mention the number. So, yeah, you know, I think it's 280 something disregarded, and it was 255, 256, the winning. So yeah, if the majority of the disregarded ones, yeah, that means she would have won, and she might have been able to, you know, pick apart the student government. I don't know exactly if that would have been, yeah. And Paul would have won the election if he voted for himself, but he felt bad about picking himself. He picked Tracy, and this caused her to win by a single vote. I already mentioned that some, but this spells it out. And during Paul's acceptance speech in a close-up of Matthew Broderick, over his right shoulder, camera left, is a portion of a poster that reads, "Ill Man." And yeah, and under IMDb goofs, incorrectly regarded as goofs. When Tracy is setting up her table at the beginning of the movie, she opens 5 legs on a 4-legged table. However, this is clearly deliberate, a symbol of her overachievement. And let's see. Quotes. Which is the last. And I think I'm going to try to imitate the voices. My leg wasn't bugging me too much, and the weather was so nice, and every day after school, Lisa and I would go to her house to fucking have a hot tub. Who cares about this stupid election? We all know it doesn't matter who gets elected president of Carver. Do you really think it's going to change anything around here? Make one single person smarter or happier or nicer? The only person it does matter to is the one who gets elected. The same pathetic charade happens every year, and everyone makes the same pathetic promises just so they can put it on their transcripts to get into college. So vote for me, because I don't even want to go to college, and I don't care. And as president, I won't do anything. The only promise I will make is that if I get elected, I will immediately dismantle the student government so that none of us will ever have to sit through one of these stupid assemblies again. And the quote indicates the student body erupts in huge cheers and they start chanting, "Tammy, Tammy." Or don't vote for me. Who cares? Don't vote at all. And they all rise to give her a standing ovation. Dear Lord Jesus, I do not often speak with you and ask for things, but now I really must insist that you help me win the election tomorrow because I deserve it and Paul Metzler doesn't, as you well know. I realize that it was your divine hand that disqualified Tammy Metzler, and now I'm asking that you could go that one last mile and make sure to put me in office where I belong so that I may carry out your will on earth as it is in heaven. Amen. Dear God, I know I don't believe in you, but since I'll be starting Catholic school soon, I thought I should at least practice. Let's see, what do I want? I want Lisa to realize what a bitch she is and feel really bad and apologize for how she hurt me and know how much I still love her. In spite of everything, I still want Paul to win the election tomorrow, not that cunt Tracy. Oh, I also want a really expensive pair of leather pants, and someday I want to be really good friends with Madonna. Love, Tammy. Like it's a note, like a letter or something. Dear God, thank you for all your blessings. You've given me so many nice things, like good health, nice parents, a nice truck, and what I'm told is a large penis, and I'm very grateful. But I sure am worried about Tammy. In my heart, I still can't believe she tore down my posters, but sometimes she does get so weird and angry. Please help her be a happier person, because she's so smart and sensitive, and I love her so much. Also, I'm nervous about the election tomorrow, and I guess I want to win and all, but I know that's totally up to you. You'll decide who the best person is, and I'll accept it. And forgive me for my sins, whatever they may be. Amen. And I mean, maybe it is God's will that she, that inspires Tammy to, because she wants to be expelled and get into, I forget the name, but the Catholic school, and, God seems to be helping her to be a happier person in that Catholic school. Larry, we're not electing the fucking Pope here. Just tell me who won. You might ask if I ever saw Tracy Flick again. Well, I did. Just once. I was down in Washington for a museum educators conference, and I stayed an extra day to do some sightseeing. After an inspiring morning on the mall, I was on my way to the Holocaust Museum when, across the street, he spots Tracy chatting with a congressman who she seems to be working for. As she gets into the stretch limousine with him, it freeze frames on her with a smug expression on her face. I'll never know if she saw me. Probably not. But in that moment, all the bad memories, all the things I ever wanted to say to her, it all came flooding back. My first impulse was to run over there, pound on her window, and demand that she admit she tore down those posters and lied and cheated her way into winning that election. But instead, I just stood there, and I suddenly realized I wasn't angry at her anymore. I just felt sorry for her. I mean, when I think about my new life and all the exciting things I'm doing, and then I think about what her life must be like, probably still getting up at 5 in the morning to pursue her pathetic little dreams, it just makes me sad. I mean, where is she really trying to get to anyway? And what is she doing in that limo? Who the fuck does she think she is? He throws his drink at the limo, it splatters on the rear window. The limo screeches to a halt, and a man gets out and shouts at him as he runs away. Dave, I'm just saying this as your friend. What you're doing is really, really wrong, and you've got to stop. The line you've crossed it's immoral and it's illegal. Jim, come on, I don't need a lecture on ethics. I'm not talking about ethics, I'm talking about morals. What's the difference? I love that whole thing of like, none of them can really define it, and then it gets to Tracy and she doesn't get to define it because the bell rings. The sight of Tracy at that moment affected me in a way I can't fully explain. Part of it was that she was spying, but mostly was her face. Who knew how high she would climb in life? How many people would suffer because of her? I had to stop her now. Oh, there's one more thing about Tracy I think you should know. Her pussy gets so wet you can't... I'm sorry, I don't think I'll be able to read that one with a straight face. Tracy, you're a very intelligent girl. You have a lot of admirable qualities. But one day, maybe you'll learn that being smart and doing whatever you need to do to get ahead and stepping on other people to get there, well, there's a whole lot more to life than that. And in the end, you're only cheating yourself. Why are you lecturing me? This isn't the time or the place to get into it, but there is, for just one example, a certain former colleague of mine who made a very big mistake, a life mistake. Now, I think the lesson here is, old or young, we all make mistakes, and we have to learn that our actions, all of them, can carry serious consequences. I don't know what you're referring to, but maybe if certain older, wiser people hadn't acted like such little babies and gotten so mushy, then everything would be okay. I agree. And I also think that certain young and naive people need to think they're lucky stars and be very, very grateful that the entire school didn't find out about certain indiscretions that could have ruined their reputations and their chances to win certain elections. And I think certain older people, like you and your colleague, shouldn't be leching after their students, especially when some of them can't even get their own wives pregnant. And they certainly shouldn't be making slanderous accusations, especially when certain young, naive people's mothers are paralegal secretaries at the city's biggest law firm and have won many successful lawsuits. If you want to keep questioning me like this, I won't continue without my attorney present. I love how they keep saying, like, certain, and I'm not going to mention names, and just, yeah. Paul, what's your favorite fruit? Pears. Okay, good, okay. let's say, no, wait, apples. Apples, fine. Let's say that all you ever knew were apples. Apples, apples, and more apples. You might think apples were pretty good, even if you got a rotten one every once in a while. But then one day, and then the description here notes that he draws another circle which looks the same as the others. He completely... It's a visual aid. You're supposed to make it distinct. Yeah. There's an orange. And now you can make a decision. Do you want an apple or do you want an orange? That's democracy. I also like bananas. You might think it upset me that Paul Metzler had decided to run against me, but nothing could be further from the truth. He was no competition for me. It was like apples and oranges. I had to work a little harder, that's all. You see, I believe in the voters. They understand that elections aren't just popularity contests. They know this country was built by people just like me who work very hard and don't have everything handed to them on a silver spoon. Not like some rich kids who everybody likes because their father owns Metzler Cement and give them trucks on their 16th birthday and throw them big parties all the time. No, they don't ever have to work for anything. They think they can just all of a sudden, one day out of the blue, waltz right in with no qualifications whatsoever and try to take away what other people have worked for very, very hard their entire lives. No, didn't bother me at all. Mr. McAllister, somebody tore down my posters. It's not fair, it's not fair. Can I get an A? Can I get a recommendation? Can I? Fuck them. If you died right now, I would throw myself into one of my dad's cement trucks and get poured into your tomb. Such a happy person. Wow. And it is also, I mean, she puts that note right in front of Lisa, and Lisa, like, reads it and looks up, and she's like, okay, that's... I think you and I are looking at this relationship slightly differently. It's, yeah. I don't know why, but Lisa decided she wanted to hurt me, and she knew exactly what to do. I sure was surprised the day Lisa Flanagan asked me for a ride home and ended up blowing me. Being suspended is like getting a paid vacation. Why do they think it's a punishment? It's like your dog pees on the carpet and you give him a treat, and then you get in trouble for skipping school. It's so stupid. Hendricks told me one more time and I'd be expelled. Sounded good to me. And it's also, you know, Paul then, you know, at first he tries to slide it under her door because, you know, she might still be angry with him, and he wants to respect her privacy. And then she walks over and opens the door, and he, like, sheepishly gets up and it's like, I went around to all your teachers and got your assignments. You know, last time you got so behind. And she's like, thank you. And, you know, inside she's like, you idiot. You know, I wanted to be free of the homework for this. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to read this entirely, but it's the... Yeah. Yeah, you know, yeah, I already mentioned the fill me up sequence is a lot of fun. That's, you know, and Jim's reaction. You know, at first he's like, yeah, as this points out, Jim is a bit disturbed, but somehow it makes him even more enthusiastic. Would that make this an igneous rock or a sedimentary rock? What's the difference between igneous and sedimentary anyway? And she sticks up her hand, just like Tracy used to, obviously reminded of this, ignores her and looks to the others, none of them respond. The screen cuts to play. Anybody? It's just an absolutely perfect way to end it. I can't wait to start campaigning. Ah, well, should be easy for you, so far no competition. Yeah, but, you know, Coca-Cola is by far the world's #1 soft drink, and they spend more money than anybody on advertising. I guess that's how come they stay #1. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd actually won the election. Maybe my whole life would be different. Like, I might never have gone to Yosemite with Greg and Travis. Or maybe I'd be dead. Ever the melodramatic, just, yeah. Whenever he thinks of like something bad maybe happening, he really does get absolutely melodramatic. And really, all of the teen characters in this do, and that's being a teenager, you know. Again, that's just pitch perfect. You know, as I've said before, I have a lot of sympathy to, you know, being a teenager is just one of the most confusing and frustrating experiences of one's life. And, you know, obviously I can't speak to, you know, I'm, you know, early 30s, so I shouldn't, yeah, I don't want to give away exactly, but, you know, so I don't know what it's like to be middle-aged or, you know, in your old age, but really just, yeah. You know, when I think back, you know, childhood can also suck, but teenage life is just, yeah. Paul Power. Paul for president. Promise. Progress. Peanut. Yeah, and the thing, you know, when he's talking about, you know, when narrating about going, you know, what happens to a man when he loses everything? Everything he's worked for, everything he believes in, driven from his home, cast out of society. How can he survive? Where can he go? I know it seems crazy, but Jim, what I'm trying to tell you is that Tracy and I are totally in love. In love? Yeah, it's serious. She inspires me in ways that Linda never has. She even wants me to read my novel. But you haven't written your novel. That's the whole point. I've got it right here. I just need to get it out there. Tracy wants me to write it so she can read it. It's beautiful. Tracy's mom, she doesn't understand. No, I'd say she doesn't. The fact is, I've never seen a mother so upset. All right, I know what Tracy told her mother, what her mother told me. I need to hear this from you because I have a legal responsibility here. Let me ask you this. Did you cross the line with this girl? We're in love. And the description says he sobs helplessly, which is absolutely spot on description of it. One thing that's important to know about me is that I'm an only child, so my mom is really devoted to me, and I love her so much. She wants me to do all the things that she wanted to do in life but couldn't. Lying in bed, unable to sleep, Jim McAllister imagines Tracy's mouth whispering into his ear, repeating what she said to him earlier. When I win the presidency, we're going to be spending a lot of time together. Lots and lots and lots of time. President and advisor. Harmonious and productive. Close and special. You and I. And that's also like, I mean, when you think about, you know, Reese Witherspoon had to stand, you know, probably quite close to the camera and just say these lines, you know, imagining that she's saying them directly to Matthew Broderick, you know, speaking directly into his ear. And it's, you know, it's one of those parts of a performance that are really difficult to do because she has to use a lot of her imagination to get there. You know, it's if you're like you're acting in an action movie and there are squibs going off all around you and like people are running at you and such, it's, you know, you can get into that mindset of, oh, I have to be really quick here or they're gonna kill me. You know, that's there's a certain level of physical reality that you can react to, but here, this performance, she really has to sell it when just and it's also, I mean, the way she's saying it, it's just a little bit more, you know, I don't know if intense is the word, but yeah, there's a more power to it than when she talked to him at the car, because that's reality, and this is this kind of slightly exaggerated, excuse me, as you know, negative thoughts and memories often are, and she does absolutely perfect. And again, I mean, it would be there are probably people who would not have included something like that, but it's just it adds so much to the movie. All these, you know, you spend a lot of time of the movie inside one of the four characters' heads or memories or such, and they add so much. It would, I mean, the individual performances also really sell it, but you would lose so much if you cut out these things. You know, also the thing where Tammy talks about, you know, going to the Catholic school and meeting Jennifer, and the moment she says, the best part was meeting Jennifer, and then Jennifer Juniper kicks in just immediately, like, and it's that it is that cheesy sort of thing where, you know, the moment that you're super in love with someone, like, you know, suddenly songs that kind of remind you of them and that seem to fit just means so much more, and just it's pitch perfect. Everybody can relate to that, you know, when you're super into someone and then suddenly music seems as though it was written about you and that other person and several other people if you're in that kind of relationship. Just, yeah. As the winner of the election is about to be announced, act surprised, walk slowly to the podium, be modest, thank them for this incredible honor. And again, it's just, she clearly doesn't mean any of this. All of this is just her thinking, what should I make it appear to be? What presentation would trick them into thinking positively of this? You know, I mean, it starts with act surprised. You know, she already knows that it's happening, and that's also why she's not sitting there like nervous and trying to calm herself down. No, she already knows she's won, so she's just sitting there talking her, pep talking, with her inner voice, or making sure she'll give a performance that won't make, I mean, what she wants to do is to like run up to the microphone and say, I knew it, I knew I could beat you, and I won. This is for me. And she knows that if she does that, people aren't going to like it. It's one of those things. I mean, everybody has to. You're never the exact same person when you're. When what you're doing is going to be seen by other people as you are if you're not. But if you have to spend a ton of energy trying to, push away who you really are, your first instincts, and put on a show to make other people like you, you should maybe just stop and think, is this really, why do I feel the need to put in so much effort to, I mean, ultimately that is kind of manipulative. And I'm not saying that everybody who does that or who needs to do that is doing it for the wrong reasons, but I do think a lot of people, if they find themselves doing that, if they watch that scene and they're like, wow, that sounds just like my inner monologue when I, just maybe stop and think, why am I, what do I think will happen if they see the real me, and why am I so sure they won't like the real me? or won't like it enough for my tastes. Now that I have more life experience, I feel sorry for Mr. McAllister. I mean, anyone who's stuck in the same little room, wearing the same stupid clothes, saying the exact same things year after year for his whole life, while the students go on to good colleges, move to big cities, and do great things and make loads of money, he's got to be at least a little jealous. It's like my mom says, the weak are always trying to sound strong. Wow. So messed up. Sometimes when I'm sad, I sit and watch the power station. They say if you lie between two of the main wires, your body just evaporates. You become a gas. I wonder what that would feel like. God, that's dark. None of this would have happened if Mr. McAllister hadn't meddled the way he did. He should have just accepted things instead of trying to interfere with destiny. You see, you can't interfere with destiny. That's why it's destiny. And if you try to interfere, the same thing's just going to happen anyway. And you'll just suffer. When I think back on my relationship with Mr. Novotny, what I miss most is our talks. Good morning, Mr. N. Looks like you could use a cupcake. And Tracy Flick. I've seen a lot of ambitious students come and go over the years, but Tracy Flick, she was a special case. And a boy grabs a handful of the complimentary chewing gum sticks from Tracy's stand. Hey, one per person, put those back! And the response is, eat me. I love how she shouts it as though he's stealing life-saving medicine or something. Just, they're chewing gum. It's just, but to her, it's like a huge offense, you know. It's, yeah. Offense, not offense. An offensive offense. And yeah, that covers that. So yeah, absolutely love this movie and really happy that I get to talk about it, and hope you enjoyed it too. Please comment, thumbs up, and subscribe for more content.